What is up, guys? Really important high-level conceptual video here. And that is why you should not be doing personalized outreach, especially in 2024 going forwards, and why it's a complete waste of time. So before I get into it, there's two caveats to this. The first one is if you've got a massive ticket size or LTV, right? So if you're one deal to you is worth multiple millions, you're selling yachts or private jets, right, as opposed to a mid-market service. So this this video is really aimed at, if you've got an LTV as a B2B company of 10 to 100K, then this is really sort of the rough ballpark that I'm aiming this video at. The second caveat is personalized outreach can be valuable if you are building long-term relationships, for example, with a Dream 100, quote unquote, right? So especially if you're not so much wanting to sign these people as prospects, as clients, but rather establish partnerships. So white label partnerships, referral partnerships, affiliates, things like that. Especially white label partnerships, can be very lucrative. For example, if you reach an agreement with one party that you've developed a relationship with for 6 months, perhaps through Twitter or LinkedIn or another social media platform, and they are then bringing you in 10, 20 clients. Okay, so then you do have leverage in that scenario. Okay, but again, the topic of leverage, we're going to be talking about the rule of 1,000, which is, in my opinion, you should not be in business if you're sending less than 1,000 pieces of outreach per day. Now, again, this is not so much for I'll be distinguishing here between a beginner or freelance or solopreneur and a person who has aspirations to go and build a proper outbound marketing channel for an established and growing business. So with all the tools at our disposal in 2024 going onwards, we have the ability nowadays to leverage automation to send thousands and thousands of pieces of outreach per day through multiple channels, right? So cold email is one of those bread and butter channels. You can be sending tens of thousands of emails per day, right? There are companies, if your total addressable market is large enough, I know personally people who are sending over 400,000 to 500,000 emails per month, even as high as 900,000 emails a month. For example, B2B SaaS is one such type of market where the total addressable market is huge, so you can be sending that kind of volume, right? So we're talking about setting up 400 or 500 email accounts, as much as 1,000 sending email accounts. Okay, the majority of you watching this won't need that kind of volume, but that is what's possible with cold email nowadays. Through usage of AI, through usage of automation, we can absolutely send high quality outreach messages whilst segmenting our lead lists and retaining some element of personalization and some element of quality with our outreach whilst doing significant volume. Okay, now social media DMs is the other thing that I wanted to touch on. Nowadays we can absolutely quite easily send thousands of DMs on each social media channel that you see here listed below: Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. What you can do is create multiple accounts, create proxies, anti-detection web browsers, so that you're essentially slipping under the radar of all these social media platforms. You're making it impossible for them to detect that all these accounts are being run from the same IP address. Right? There are ways to do this. There are automation tools, softwares that enable you to actually send thousands of pieces of outreach messages using automation. And if you want specific names and specific details on setups, I will talk about this a bit more on this channel later on in the future. But for the time being, if you are curious and you actually want to take action on what I speak about on this video, message me on Twitter. So my Twitter will be linked in. If not, it should be under every video, but if not, look at the main description of my channel and just reach out to me on Twitter. Okay, I'll tell you the specific tools I use, the setup that I use. The whole thing here is, and cold calls as well. So with cold calls, I don't have direct experience with cold calling at scale, so I'm not going to go into detail and kind of relay this with the same level of conviction because it's not something I have direct experience in, unlike the other channels. But essentially the concept is the same. You would do however many dials, you use a speed dialer or CRM that's capable of cold calling in a streamlined way. You do 100 dials, 200 dials, 300 dials a day, and then you'd simply replicate yourself. You'd create SOPs, standard operating procedures, and hire your sales reps or train sales reps to do the same. And what you want to be doing is 1,000 a day. 1,000 a day is the minimum, right? You should not be in business if you're sending less than 1,000 pieces of outreach per day, right? You want to be taking your outbound marketing seriously. And this is what leads me to the next point, is the difference between what I'm talking about here and more of a kind of a small business owner that doesn't understand the true leverage that's at their fingertip, at the reach of their fingertips, in 2024 going forwards is, this is essentially what business is. It's what separates a solopreneur or a freelancer or a beginner business person from someone who's a bit more experienced and understands systems. It's really, this is what we're really talking about. It's systems thinking. It's learning distribution mechanisms, right? So distribution at scale is really the name of the game. A really good thought experiment here is, imagine you were to reach out to a friend, a self-made billionaire, okay, and you wanted him or her to come into your business and scale it as fast as possible, right? Let's say they had 6 months to scale your business. Would they come in and start doing 20, 30, 50 pieces of personalized outreach per day? No, they wouldn't. What they would be doing is, okay, how can I distribute this product or service to as many people as possible, as most cost efficiently as possible, right? And as soon as they find out a mechanism to do that, for example, once they find out a strategy to, actually I can send over 1,000 DMs a day, or even, there's no cap on this, on Facebook, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, on cold email. So why don't I just do this but just focus on absolutely blitzing the volume, right? Taking it to the extreme. So what they would do is simply they would run all of these channels, or as many as they could, test and see for themselves, or according to initial preliminary data, what is yielding the best results. So what channels are we actually acquiring customers in at the cheapest rate for our particular service, for our particular market or target market, and then they would go all in on those 1 to 2 channels. Okay, so let's say after some initial testing, they find out that cold email is the best and LinkedIn also works really well. They would just go completely balls to the wall with these acquisition channels, right? They would be sending tens of thousands of messages a day. And that is the difference between an experienced entrepreneur and a sort of beginner level entrepreneur or an aspiring business owner who thinks that, it's all about relationship building. It's all about warm outreach. Warm outreach has its place. Personalized outreach does have its place. But really, unless you fall into one of these two buckets, in my opinion, it's a complete waste of time in 2024. Okay, and another thought experiment is perhaps not a billionaire, but think of a mercenary CEO, right? So these very experienced individuals that come into companies and just scale them up super quickly because they're so good at what they do. One of the first things they look at is placing distribution mechanisms at scale, right? And in fact, it's not just, preventing or protecting the time of the founder, because it's a very low leverage thing for you as a founder to be spending time doing manual outreach, right? It's also a low leverage thing for your sales reps or your SDRs to be doing manual outreach, okay? Why would they, if you could simply place systems like this into your business and teach them how to teach an SDR how to run these systems? Very, very simple. And perhaps you can train virtual assistants on this as well, that your SDRs might even manage. Okay, so this is what you want to be doing. You need to be taking distribution to the next level. You want to be thinking in terms of systems rather than thinking like, a micro business owner who's more sort of just looking to make a few grand a month. You want to be really thinking about how can I... Well, another way to put this is a lot of people have an LLC or a limited company, or they essentially registered a business, but they are still thinking like an employee rather than an actual business owner. An actual business owner thinks in systems only. And that is a thing that, the more experienced people out there, this is why they can scale so quickly, because they know the importance of leverage, of true leverage. This is what leverage looks like in an outbound marketing setting, right? So what I would do is significantly more volume than you might think. And after you do this, what you want to do is essentially have the goal of reaching your current operational bottleneck, right? So what you want to be doing when you're trying to scale a B2B company is immediately, as quickly as possible, reach your current operational bottleneck. Just absolutely blitz sales, collect cash up front, and bottleneck yourself. That should be your goal. What this allows you to do is actually allows you to be more selective as well with the prospects that you decide to work with, right? You're better, and when you don't operate from scarcity, you are able to select who you work with. You're able to disqualify the majority of prospects, and perhaps instead provide them with a downsell or a different product range. Okay, this is something that you would talk about when it comes to streamlining your service delivery. You want to then, of course, increase the likelihood of success, collecting great case studies. All of this comes into play when you're operating not from a place of scarcity, but rather abundance, because you've actually mastered the art of distribution, front-end distribution in a business. These things become it's basically a positive flywheel, right? It feeds into each other. So what you want to do is create a wait list, and then dial down your outreach depending on your outbound KPI. So you don't want to completely, flood yourself with appointments, but rather you want to sort of titrate that downwards to make it a little bit more manageable for you. But you don't want to stop outreach completely. So what you want to do instead is create a wait list in case there are great clients that you do want to work with, but you sort of tell them, give us, there's a wait list right now, give us a little bit more time. We're dealing with things on the back end. Also, again, positive flywheel. This in turn sends the message that you are highly sought after business or product or company. And yeah, this is essentially what you want to do. And then after you do that, you want to spend some time streamlining service delivery on the back end, constantly iterate and improve on your service or your product. And then you have the systems in place, the SOPs in place to then very easily, sorry, I just moved the bracket instead, very easily just dial up your outreach again. So on a high level, this is what true leverage actually looks like. And this is sort of the rule of 1,000 in my eyes. Now, there are two massive things that we need to consider here. The first is your offer actually needs to be compelling to cold traffic. Otherwise, nobody's buying anyway. Even if you do personalized outreach, nobody's buying. Okay. If you don't have something that the market wants, nobody's going to buy from you. And the second thing is you must understand the core tenets of outbound marketing. So I want to go through the first point first, obviously. Very quickly, just summarize the key components of an offer. Obviously, it must address the salient pain points of your target market. Ideally, it has to be the core, salient, singular pain point of your target market, because they will have many, many different pain points, right? But you want to try and identify the thing that sort of, a good question for this is, if you ask your target market, or maybe 1,000 people from your target market, what keeps you up at night? What do you constantly think about? What is the thing that's at the forefront of your mind? If 80% of people answer with the same thing, that is likely what you're looking for. Okay, so addressing the salient pain point of your target market, understanding target market awareness. That's this one. Market awareness levels, sophistication levels. I'm not going to go into it in detail. I've put out a training on this in a different YouTube video. I can't remember the exact title of that, but it's like a 25-minute video. You also want risk reversal. Okay, do not be doing outbound marketing without risk reversal. You also want relevancy. This is, again, likely you will have relevancy if you truly understand your target market and have done proper market research. You also want social proof and case studies and so on and so forth. Number 2, you must understand the core tenets of outbound. Okay, so this is not to... obviously, we talked about quantity and the importance of quantity and distribution, but also you want to be doing quality outreach, right? So this is what separates spam, just chucking a volume at a and having no game plan, and actually having both. What you want with outbound marketing is both quality and quantity. And so these are some of the main points. I think this pretty much covers it all that I would be wary of. And what I would be communicating to clients. So the first is obviously your copy, the actual messaging itself needs to be compelling, right? So important things to bear in mind here. Never CTA call to action. Your call to action should never be to pitch a call. You never want to be pitching a call directly, because one single outreach message could never convey the value that you have to your end prospect. So what you want to do is just get them to reply and to bite. So your CTA should always be to value. Hey, can I send you this slide deck? Can I send you this video? Can I send you XYZ? It needs to be something that they can very easily say yes to. And once you get the initial response, that is what starts the cascade and the slippery slope to which they eventually end up booking a call, right? That is the end goal, to book a call, but you never sell the call. You sell, it's the same thing with advertising. You never sell the service. You're selling the click, right? You're selling the next step, right? So with your outreach, it's you're selling. You want them to opt in, essentially, quote unquote, opt into your lead magnet. You want them to raise their hand up and say, yes, I would like that deck. I would like that XYZ. And in general as well, you don't want to sell the details. Okay, of course, this depends on your level of the level of market sophistication of your prospect, but you do in general want to sell the outcome or their future, their desired future, as opposed to dwelling on details or features. So again, in general, your cadence is going to be get them to reply first. Beyond that, nothing else matters. Once they've replied, ensure that you're getting enough positive replies. After they're positively replying, make sure they're actually booking calls. After they're booking calls, make sure they're actually closing into deals, collect feedback on your sales calls, actually track this, have a Google Sheet, track record all your sales calls, and then iterate from there. What you then want to do is start worrying about lead quality. So once you have enough leads, enough book calls, you want to make sure that you're actually increasing the lead quality. The way you do this is through increasing friction in your funnel. So qualification questions, be upfront with pricing. Perhaps, our packages start from this amount of money to this amount of money. If you can't at least afford this amount, then don't bother booking a call. And, you could be upfront with revenue levels, requirement levels. All these types of things are valid ways of adding friction to a funnel, to an outbound sales funnel. People might disagree with pricing. I actually think that pricing, if you give a range and you give a minimum, then it kind of does eliminate a lot of tire kickers. So if you say, for example, my service, the lowest package we offer is, 3K, then you're not going to get any tire kickers who are basically broke and can't afford your service anyway. Sales assets is a massively important thing. Okay, so sales assets or sales enablement assets are pretty much a mandatory part of outbound marketing. It will incredibly, to a massive extent, increase the efficiency of your outbound sales funnel, because what you want to do is, like I said, you never want to pitch the call on your outreach message. You want to direct them towards, for example, a slide deck, something that actually, that's where you would sell your service. That's where you would really move a lot of weight, push a lot of weight. And you may or may not have heard of the 7-hour rule. Okay, we can get into a lot of detail here, but essentially the 7-hour rule is a prospect needs to consume around 7 hours worth of content in order to become truly familiarized with your service. And the closer they are to that 7-hour mark, the higher intent they are on the sales call and the more likely they are to convert. So if you're just getting a person who doesn't know anything about your service, they kind of, on a scale of 1 to 10, they're perhaps a 2 out of 10 familiar with what you actually do, highly, highly unlikely to convert on that call. So the difference between a 1-call close and a 2-call close is essentially how good your outbound marketing, your marketing assets and your sales assets actually are. If you've got really strong sales enablement assets, decks, videos, etc., you have a much, much higher chance of taking a 2-call close, a discovery and a demo call, and taking it into a 1-call close. What happens if you can close a prospect in one sales call? You obviously open up lots of calendar slots in your calendar, right? So you're essentially massively increasing the efficiency of your sales process. Inevitably, you're able to collect a lot more cash, because if you're freeing up more calendar space, you're able to essentially take on board a lot more sales calls. Each particular individual, each particular sales rep is able to take on much more in the form of sales calls and massively increase their bandwidth. Hope that makes sense. The way you also circulate your sales assets is through pre-call flows. You also want to implement a thank you page, right? So after the prospects books a call with you, you'd redirect them to a thank you page as opposed to just saying thank you for booking a call, right? So there are multiple touch points essentially where we massively increase the familiarity that the prospect has with our service. When we do that and we combine high quality sales assets with volume, we're making it almost an impossibility that we don't get an extremely high ROI on our time, right? Which is what this video is all about. It's all about distribution mechanisms at scale whilst retaining quality in your outreach messaging. The next one is response handling. So again, this is inbox management if you're cold emailing or just essentially, even social media DMs. You want to be collecting feedback again. So if a prospect says, I'm not interested, ask why. Maybe just send one email or send one message being polite and just asking them why. Is it not relevant? Is it not the right time, etc., etc.? And you will get valuable feedback about your service that you might not otherwise have considered. You don't want to, I'll just say this, very bluntly, just ignore rude responses as well. And troll responses, just ignore them completely. Don't even dwell on it. Just move straight to the next response. You got no time to waste, right? And then the other one is hiring too quickly. So a lot of founders hire too quickly in their outbound process because it's painful. Outbound marketing is painful, and it's a long game. And it's not easy, which is another reason why people don't do it as much. It's a harder skill to master, but because it's a painful process, people tend to delegate and hire out too quickly, which sort of you're sacrificing the efficiency of your outbound process if you're really doing that. Okay, and so you need to be willing to stick it out before you delegate things in-house. Now, you can work with a consultant or an external agency, but you really want to be careful with completely outsourcing something that you don't have a clue about. You never really want to be doing that, and it kind of leaves you very sort of open to just suboptimal outcomes. The next pillar is consistency. So again, outbound is difficult, and it's a very difficult thing to stick to. Turn up and do it every single day. It's a difficult thing to stick to, right? Human beings are incredibly incompetent at just turning up and doing the same thing over and over and over again. We're very easily distracted and so on and so forth. So this is very prevalent in business in general. And the other thing that's important to note is there's always something called an outreach lag. So your actions today will only manifest and have the outcome that you want 2, 3, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe even 6 months from now. So that's exactly why being consistent with your outbound marketing and distribution is so important. You also want to be following up. So very unlikely that the prospect's going to reply on your first message, or if you follow up once, you want to be following up. Generally, if someone responds positively, I tend to follow up at least 7 times. Usually, I only have 3 to 4 messages in the initial cadence, because if someone hasn't responded by then, it usually means that they're not interested, and you want to take that bandwidth and cycle through new prospects instead of hitting the same prospect. Okay, but if they've responded positively, go ahead and follow up at least 7 times. That's what I do, and I think that's the optimal way to do it, at least from what I've found so far. And then the last thing is data. Actually, try and track this as best as you can. Some of this is pretty difficult. It is pretty difficult to track the exact KPIs. For example, if you're sending thousands of DMs per day, cold email absolutely is, because it's a bit more of an established B2B acquisition channel, so we have more advanced tools and softwares that allow for tracking. But ultimately, the only acquisition metrics that matter anyway is your cost to acquire a customer, and what is that in relation to your LTV, particularly your LTV GP, so your gross profit lifetime customer value, right? So upstream metrics don't really matter in the sense of what's your reply rate, booking, even your meeting book rate doesn't really matter, because at the end of the day, all that matters is what are you spending, how much time are you investing firstly, and how much are you spending on OPEX, your operational costs, and then how much are you acquiring customers for, and did you make more money than you spent? That's all that really matters in acquisition. So all these upstream metrics, they're really secondary metrics, and they shouldn't really, you shouldn't really be dwelling on it too much. It doesn't really matter how many emails you have to send to book a call. It doesn't really matter how many DMs you have to send to book a call. All that matters is, what did you spend? How much time did you spend on this activity? Is it generating you an ROI? That's all that matters. And acquisition, all acquisition, all it comes down to is LTV to CAC ratio. That's all it is. Okay, lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer. And we want that to be 3 times as much. Specifically, we want your LTV GP to be 3 times as much as your cost to acquire a customer. This is something that Alex Hormozi talks about a lot in client finance acquisition. Really recommend that you go and watch his videos if you haven't already surrounding that. But yeah, guys, this is the game really when it comes to acquisition. You really do not want to be wasting your time doing low leverage activities like personalized outreach. Okay, if you're doing 50 DMs a day manually on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, you're completely wasting your time. If you're doing manual emails, completely wasting your time. You need to be sending thousands of messages a day. In my opinion, you should not be in business if you're not sending at least 1,000 pieces of outreach per day. That's just the brutal truth. That's how a business owner thinks about things, right? In terms of distribution, they think in systems, whereas the solopreneur or the beginner or the freelancer, they think in terms of more personalized outreach, building relationships, all of this kind of stuff. No, like you need to be thinking in systems, and you need to be thinking in a sort of look at your business from almost like a third eye, a bird's eye view. Okay, if you're a mercenary CEO or a really, really experienced entrepreneur that comes in and you give them a timeline, okay, you need to scale this business from A to B in 6 months or else, what do you think they're going to do? They're obviously going to just do the things that are most high leverage. They're going to tweak your offer, your service, your service delivery. They'll help you value stack and charge higher prices, collect more cash up front. But then from there, really, the game is distribution. Okay, one of my favorite quotes is, and I've mentioned this before, first time founder concerns themselves mostly with their product or their service, whereas the second time founder is all about distribution. Because at a certain point, your service is good enough, right? Your service is good enough, your product is good enough. What separates the best from the rest, and why some people drastically outcompete others in the B2B space, is distribution, right? And again, I'll say again before I sign off, if you're sending less than 1,000 messages per day, you are going to get absolutely wiped out by your competition, specifically the competition who know how to do this. So thank you very much, guys. That is it. If you do have any questions, I should have my Twitter link below, either in this video or else it should be on the main description of my channel. But cheers.